Hello and welcome to our next lecture. This is about the introduction to databases for Python. So in this tutorial, we will cover what actually the databases are, the RDBMS, NoSQL RDBMS versus NoSQL, and how we can install a Mongo installation and connectivity with PyMongo. PyMongo is we will discuss that one, and NoSQL in Python with the Tcenter UI. So maybe the last point 6 we will cover this in our next video, but this is what we are planning to here to explore the things and to discuss something. So the first question is, what is the databases? Like some system, when we are going to create a system, there is a need to store some data or to store the information somewhere. So we have to use something for that. We to so firstly it was saved in the files, and then it comes to the Microsoft Access, and there are different ways for that to store the data. So what actually the databases are and organized. If we define what actually databases are, and we can say that an organized collections of data stored. It is used for storing, manipulating, modifying, accessing, and accessing of data. So for example, we have a person information, like a person, and we want to save the information somewhere, so we use a database. Then we can say that we can easily access, observe, and analyze it easily. Maybe later on, suppose we have a person object, and we want to save the information of the person, and for a permanent basis. For the temporary basis, we can use it in a, like in a memory. But for permanent basis, suppose we want to save the user information or the person information for future. So how we can do that? We have to apply some logics to connect with the something to somewhere to save the such kind of information. We use the databases for that. This is IT tech terms, no worry about that. And then we can go through all the process in it. So what actually the next topic is, actually there are different types of databases, but mostly people divided it only to two main categories. The first one is the databases, RDBMS, and then another one is the NoSQL. So the RDBMS we call the relational database management system, and in the case of NoSQL, it is meaning that not only SQL. So for the RDBMS, they are the very strong databases are SQL, SQL is basically structured query language, and MS SQL, Microsoft SQL, and then the MySQL, that is also RDBMS, and Postgres, that is also a relational database management. There are different databases are in the field, or in the IT, or in the, you can say that in the programming, we can save the data in somewhere. And for the databases, the first thing is the Microsoft SQL Server. So here is the Microsoft SQL management system, and for the Mongos, here is the Mongo Compass DB. To install the SQL Server, we can go to the Google, and we can say that download SQL Server or SQL Server Management Studio. Sometime when we try to install the SQL Management Studio, it will automatically download the server and then your UI. And for the MongoDB, like we can say that download MongoDB. Here is the MongoDB. It comes over here, MongoDB community. So when we do click on www.mongodb.com, and it comes to their websites. So for the MongoDB, if we want to download this particular database or the software, actually we will try to use our own premises, and then there is a menu for that, a button like a download, and then the type of version, Windows, and what actually platform are you using, Windows or Linux or whatever, and the packages do you want to download it as MSI, like it is a just executable file. When we download that one and we just double click on that, it will start the installation for that particular software. So I already have installed the MongoDB, and by default MongoDB does not allow us any kind of graphical user interface. It works only in the console application. It works only in the we can say that in a console like this one, CMD, and this one. If you want to check that, like the Mongo version or something, Mongo version. So it is very easy to check that, how we can check that Mongo version by cmd or via command. So it is easily db.version, and there are a lot of the commands are, but mostly people don't like to write all the things in via commands. Suppose I want to check that Mongo v, maybe I'm forgetting something, but it works in a command. For as I said, mostly people don't like to work in a command because it is sometimes tricky to remember all the command. So we can go to some graphical user interface to interact the databases, so we can change graphically in the database. So for the Mongo, here is the Mongo Compass, and for that it is very simple. Like we can download the MongoDB from here, and here is another software as well. But you can check that like this Mongo DB Compass. When you download this one, it comes over here, MongoDB Compass, and here is the MongoDB Compass. So you can download from here like the MongoDB Compass, the UI for MongoDB, and you can connect with the by default port for your databases for the MongoDB is this one, localhost, but you can change that if you want. So let me connect this one. This is the databases in the Mongo. So here is the by default admin, config, and local. And also in the SQL server, there is some default databases like the system databases and the databases snapshots. And here the master model and MSDB and template. These databases are used by their own SQL server purposes, or we can save that when we want to work with some kind of local storage and like a temp table or some other stuff. Then these kind of tables or these kind of logics are work with these databases. But we can create a database in this way in the SQL server and in SQL management system. I'm using a MS SQL server. The meaning for that, a Microsoft SQL management system. The very simple like this one, create database. Suppose you want to use a test. Create database for the master, or maybe we can try this way. Actually, I have some permission issue. So in this way, in the Compass DB, you can create a database like. So let's discuss what actually the difference between the in the RDBMS and NoSQL. In the RDBMS, we call it databases, and in the MongoDB or in the NoSQL server, we called it also databases. But in the RDBMS, like this one, like our relational database management system, we create tables. And let's say I have something over here with my default IP. Let me connect with this server actually. So here is my database. That is my some kind of. So here is the some database. We want to create some different database, and it is work like in this way, like the tables. And here is the form of tables are. So we can use that. It has a columns and these things like column and the name. The column name is the column name, and the value is in the form of rows. So the table called in the RDBMS table, but in the case of NoSQL, we called it collection. Suppose I want to create a database. Let's say I want to create a test, and I want to name it, suppose user. Here is my collection name, user. It will create a database and with the collection user. When we come over here, we can apply different kinds of logic. We can import the data in a Compass DB or in NoSQL server, especially MongoDB, and we can also do the same thing in the RDBMS. Here you can see that these are the table, and in the NoSQL it's called collection. And another thing is that the data, suppose I want to check that. Suppose I want to check that select static from. Suppose I want to check the client status. It has the row. This is the row, and there's two rows. And here is the column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. ID, name, active status, and order. These all are the column, and here is the row. In the case of SQL server, in the case of RDBMS, it's called the rows. But in the case of this. In the case of NoSQL, we called it document, DOCUMENT document. And in the as I showed you in RDBMS, the column, the name value like this one, id name active, these all are the columns. And in the NoSQL it's called document. And the same like here the indexing, there are the indexing in the RDBMS, and in the MongoDB also called the indexing to connect or to get the data from different tables. We use a join in the RDBMS. And in the case of NoSQL, we used lookup or embedded documents. These are the two different things. And the another thing is that RDBMS provides us a ACID. What does this mean? RDBMS provides us ACID. It's called atomicity, consistency, isolation, and distributable. Actually, it's called durable. So this is the term for that. There's a different way. If we try to search like this way, what actually the RDBMS provide us is it, or we can check that these are the different terms: atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So these are the different terms. Atomicity, consistency, isolation. So these all are different things, and it work only when you are going to work with the databases. So this thing will help. Either you want to choose with the RDBMS or NoSQL. So the purpose is, take it example like we are going to we want some transaction via cash machine or like a ATM machine. In that case, if we want to enter the card and try to enter the other the passport or pin, then we get the money. After that, whenever we money received, the sum amount or what actually we are entering in amount is detected automatically in our account. So this is the same term like asset. So this is the term, either it will completely successful or the fail. No way like to it is partially completed or not. So this is the term for that asset. And for the databases, there are some components are involved in the databases. So the components, mainly we called it the hardware, like the physical device, because this database, this is the database I created somewhere. So this is saved somewhere, called it a physical device, like it could be a hard drive or it could be anything. And the software, like I said, the data is saved somewhere. To connect with that database, we use the software. Like in this case, we are using a management system, DBMS management system, or in the case we are using a Mongo Compass. And the data is a raw collection of data. I already have discussed this in my previous lecture about actually data. And data access, or we can to access the data, like we have saved some data in the databases, like we have saved the data over here, ID, name, and how we can get this data from the table. For that we use a different language. For that, like in the SQL server, we use a SQL, structured query language, and in the form of JSON, or in the form of MongoDB, we use a different approaches. And this is about to the all these things. And for to connect with the MongoDB with our Python, we will use one library called it pip. Pip is, by the way, is to just to install anything. Pip install and PyMongo. You can check these things from here, like what actually the PyMongo is. PyMongo, this is a read document and about the what actually the PyMongo work. PyMongo distribute content tool for interact with the Mongo database from Python. So this is a database we can this is a library that we use to connect with the databases. So in our next lecture, I will try to create one UI form. Like suppose I want to create a user form with the name, maybe email and password, and then we try to create a registration, and we try to update the value and get the login detail and some other stuff. So thank you for watching, and I will try keep posting for the next lecture to connect with the databases, especially the MongoDB, or maybe later we will try to connect with the SQL server or MySQL server.